All right, welcome back to the podcast. Congratulations on beginning your success program. Stay tuned for this episode. STL Pareto is based on the Pareto principle. You may have heard of the 80-20 principle before, and the 80-20 principle is the same thing. Pareto efficiency, Pareto optimality, Pareto's law, or the 80-20 principle. That's what the cornerstone of STL Pareto is all about, and your success program depends on it. It also depends on emotional intelligence, beginning with self-awareness, which is all talked about in your free ebook. It's on my website, stlpareto.com. So let's get started. The topic of this video is the core values, because the values are what are going to determine the experiences that you have. Like, life is full of experiences, and basically your memory makes up all of who you are. Basically, is stored in your memory. Other than that, there's no such thing as a self. The only thing you have that you can call a self, when you say I, the first person pronoun I, when you reference that part of you, that's all made up of your memories that are stored in your memory. And how you remember your memories are based upon your perspective. Your memories are based on your perspective. If 10 people experience the same situation, they're all going to have a different memory of it. That's kind of what, like, juries are about and the court of law and stuff. That's always going to be the case. Now, your perspective impacts your memory impacts your life, and your life, basically your perspectives have an organization system. Your perspective has an organization system. So your perspective is that's why your perspective is so powerful, because it determines the memories you have, and the memories you have determine the experience of life you have. Now, there's nothing you can do to absolutely change the past except changing the perspective. And the way to change the future is also by changing your perspective. In essence, when you change your perspective, you change past, present, and future all at the same time by changing your perspective, because now you're learning to think both forwards and backwards. If I tell you how to bake a cake, you can probably tell me, okay, you mix this and the batter, you mix it, you pour it, you preheat the oven, you put in your weight, and then you spread the frosting and the sprinkles, and it's good. But if I told you to do it backwards, I want you to literally be able to visualize. Close your eyes for 5 seconds and visualize that whole thing taking place in reverse. So now the sprinkles are coming up in reverse gravity. The frosting is being taken away from the cake down to a perfectly untouched cake, going back into the oven. Imagine all of that taking place in reverse. Imagine the eggs going back into the egg, the yolk and the white and the yellow going back into the egg, and then it just magically becoming uncracked. Be able to think in forward and reverse. It's a very, very powerful psychological tool, because that's what your memories are like. That's the only way that you can take real advantage of business development for you. And if you want to apply the 80-20 principle, that's what this is all about. So, getting back on topic, the value systems are basically the subconscious is where it all takes place. And this is in your ebook, the one I told you about at the beginning, at the end of the podcast. It's called Best in the World. It's Why I Am How You Can Be Too. Why I Am How You Can Be Too. There's a part in there about subconscious beliefs, and there's also a diagram, and the diagram says that the subconscious is 2,700 times more powerful than the conscious. Now, if you're watching this video, everything that you're doing in watching it is taking place in the conscious. If you're listening to the words I'm saying and you're realizing it's actually in the English language, so you're trying to understand it too, and you're watching my face or my hands or whatever, then you obviously know that it's in English. And your subconscious is interpreting that subconsciously. 95% of everything that goes on is below the iceberg. Sigmund Freud kind of explained the id, the ego, the superego, and he also explained the conscious, preconscious, subconscious. So between the conscious and the subconscious is a preconscious. And pretty much everything, all decision making behavior takes place in the the subconscious. But then the conscious is just like an overlay, if you could imagine it being that way. It's like an overlay, or it's like a blanket, or it's like a sheath, like insulation. You could imagine it like an installation of a copper wire, is kind of what the conscious is like. But the subconscious is where all of the mental decision-making behavior is based. And the subconscious is organized. It's organized in a way of archetypes, it's organized in a way of beliefs, which is why in your ebook this chapter is actually called Subconscious Beliefs. And it's also organized in values. Okay, and value systems are what belief systems depend upon. Your thoughts come from your beliefs. Your beliefs come from your values. Values that you have may be shared or not shared with me and with other people that you care about. So, when it comes to value systems, we have to have a commonality. We have to have something that we actually share. When it comes to, we have to have commonality. We have to have something that we share in common. And that commonality is explained in the core values. It's explained in the core values in your ebook. There was a bit of commotion there for a minute. Anyway, the core values are in your ebook. The first one is ambition, and each one of these is going to be expanded upon in a little bit later. The first one is ambition. The second one is self-discipline. The third one is idea meritocracy. And the fourth one is gratitude. So these are all these core values I've thought about, and each one of them represents several ideas. And that's kind of what a value is. A value is the basis for beliefs, and beliefs are the basis for thoughts. So a value is basically like a super condensed thought. If you imagine, like in computers, there's a way to condense a file. It's called like a .zip. If you've heard that before, it condenses it so it takes up less space. That's what a value is too. So actually changing your values before you change any beliefs or thoughts about business, changing your values first is actually applying the Pareto principle, because it's focusing on those minimum effective dose of things that have a humongous outcome towards the ends that you want. So those are the four core values talked about in the ebook. And the fifth core value is kind of like a hidden core value, just like Jimmy John's has a hidden menu. I don't know if you know this, a couple different restaurant food places, they have like a menu and then they have a hidden menu that you don't know about. So this is part of my hidden menu, but I'm not a food place, but I'm an author. So in terms of your business development, this is a hidden core value. And this one is called generosity. And generosity is something I really take to heart, because being generous is a heart question, not a pocket question. It's a heart question. Are you willing to give of yourself to other people? Do you really have the service that you need to enjoy your work? I talk about Elon Musk all the time, and the fact that he had tens of millions of dollars. He could have retired after he sold PayPal and never worked again a day in his life. He chose not to do that. He knew something fundamental. A life without work is no life at all. You need to have work, and you need to enjoy it. I dreamt and I thought that life was joy. I awoke and I saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. So that's core value number 5. I want you to remember that. Make sure it sticks in your brain, in your membrane. It's actually not in the ebook. So that's only for you if you're on this podcast. Congratulations for being the exclusive podcast listener that you are. You can get it on my website, stlpareto.com. So these core values, ambition is number 1, and ambition being the first one, that's about dreaming big. You really want to dream big. Tell me in the comments. We can have a discussion either in the comments or on my YouTube channel. There's also a discussion. But any way that you want to interact with me, I'm here for you. This is our channel. So let me know what your dreams are, because there's something called the 10X rule. Okay, and Grant Cardone wrote the 10X rule. And the 10X rule, it explains ambition in one statement. Dream big and dream real big. That was absolutely my takeaway from the 10X rule. So if you want to have 20 clients by the end of the year, why don't you actually shoot for 200? So if I had 200 clients by the end of the year, what would that look like? For me personally, I know what that would look like, because my range, I only do coaching here in St. Louis, only for St. Louis. And it's really only for people that want to grow. And the price range is like $4,000 to $12,000 a month for the intro package. And that's just for companies that want to grow, companies that are already seeing success here in the St. Louis area. But I want them to have absolute ambition. I want you to have that too. Even if you're not part of that crowd, I want you to have ambition too. I really do. Dream big about where you want to be in 10 years or 50 years. Do you want to have a job that you hate and a boss that is, okay, but not great? Or would you rather be your own boss? For me, I decided I want to be my own boss. That's why I drive for Uber. I recommend you give it a shot. Just as much as I could recommend that you would really benefit from experience in the sales position, I absolutely would experience from something like Uber or whatever is kind of like Uber. There's a lot of things now like Instacart that you can do other things besides Uber. But yeah, I highly recommend that if you're thinking about a change, because there's nothing worse than getting stuck in your rut. There's nothing worse than hitting the plateau. And this is the case if you're physical training, like what Kareem Jabbar did every morning, waking up at 4:30 a.m., working out for 2 hours every day of his life, for 50 years or 60 years or 70 years. The type of self-discipline they have, that's what makes them so great. It's the self-discipline. That's why self-discipline is one of the core values. Self-discipline is the only thing that absolutely determines your success above and beyond all else. There's no such thing as, like one of the natural laws of the universe is cause and effect. And self-discipline is the only thing that you need, absolutely need, to have tangible results that you want. Because it's just a matter of inputs and outputs, cause and effect. And then when you apply Pareto principle, which is what I'm all about, then you actually get a bigger bang for your buck. You're working smarter, not harder. But it's important to understand that working hard is part of the game too. Working hard is not something that goes away. It's more like a given. It's more like a understood. It's like, yeah, there's people who don't work hard, and then there's people who work hard. But just because you work hard doesn't mean you're going to succeed, but it's still a requisite for you to succeed. It's like, yeah, work hard, but also make sure you're doing the right thing, because Tim Ferriss said what you do is infinitely more important than how you do it. And a lot of us just get caught in this trap of being busy and doing tasks that really have no significance on the bigger picture. So if they're not moving you, the quickest way, you learn this in trigonometry in middle school or junior high. The quickest way, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and you know this. So go directly for what it is that you want. That's ambition. Have the self-discipline to follow through. Because when you combine those two, you end up mastering the fundamentals. Mastering the fundamentals is how Abraham Lincoln held this country together during the Civil War. It's also how Kareem Jabbar made the NBA Hall of Fame. Who, by the way, was also awarded the Medal of Freedom, the highest honor a civilian can be given. Mastering the fundamentals is what's achieved by core value number 1 and number 2. Which brings us to number 3, idea meritocracy. On that book list, I fixed the link. The link is now working. It's stlpareto.com/list is my book list. And somewhere towards the top in the first 10 or so is the 4 agreements. Another one is the power of ethical persuasion. These 2 books are broken into 4 principles each, totaling 8. And all 8 of these principles can basically be summed up in one word, idea meritocracy, which was inspired by principles. Another on that list is principles. And Ray Dalio from Clearwater Associates has done a great job in writing his autobiography. I really benefited from it a lot. And I absolutely have found idea meritocracy for me to be the most impactful of all of the principles throughout his book. That one in particular had the biggest bang for its buck. And I'm all about the 80-20 principle. I have been for years. It's not a new thing. The 80-20 principle is, well, I've internalized it. And I've internalized it for the last 3 years or so, even before STL Pareto. Pareto's law has already been inside me for 2.5 years. STL Pareto, the company, is just an expression of myself. Idea meritocracy explains everything about respect, everything about getting your priorities right so that you understand each other first. Most arguments come up, adversity comes up because of power struggles, because of assumptions, and because of misunderstandings. And idea meritocracy means we're going to be on the same page the whole way through. We have excellent communication. And there's no such thing as communication breakdown between me and my clients or between you and your market as long as you're in a success program. Core value number 4 is gratitude. Gratitude means a bunch of things. Once again, each value represents several ideas of thought, okay? Gratitude also represents healthy pride. It's a good thing that you take pride when you do a good job. There's nothing else that you can really take pride in. There are things that you can take pride in a certain automobile that you drive, or you can take pride in wearing some sort of special clothes or cologne or whatever, and you can take pride in whatever, but there's not a whole lot of benefit that comes from that. Seriously, the only real benefit that comes from pride is when you do a good job at whatever you do, which is why always doing your best is one of the 4 agreements. But you can see that on the book list. The 4th core value, gratitude. Pat yourself on the back when you do a good job. Remind yourself how great you are and how much you love yourself on a daily basis. Do it every single day. All right, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast today. This can be found at stlpareto.com, Pareto.com. I've also got a free ebook for you, specifically for the podcast listeners. For you is a free ebook. It's Best in the World: Why I Am and How You Can Be Too. Why I Am and How You Can Be Too. Inspired by some of the most brilliant minds of our time. Stay tuned for the next episode. I'm basically going to keep going down each of the principles that are found in the ebook Best in the World. That way you know what's in it already. So stay tuned to the podcast. If you don't have time, don't worry about it now. You can get to it next week or the week after.